20. Naḷapāna Jataka. I found the footprints. This story was told by the master while journeying on an alms pilgrimage through Kosala. When he had come to the village of Naḷapāna and was living at Khuddaka Vana near the pool of Naḷapāna, about cane sticks. In those days the brethren, after bathing in the pool of Naḷapāna, made the novices get them cane sticks for needle cases, but, finding them hollow throughout, went to the master and said, "Sir, we had cane sticks got in order to provide needle cases. And from top to bottom they are quite hollow. Now how can that be?" "Brethren," said the master, "such was my ordinance in times gone by." And, so saying, he told this story of the past. In past times, we are told, there was a thick forest on this spot. And in the lake here lived a water ogre who used to devour everyone who went down into the water. In those days the bodhisattva had come to life as the king of the monkeys, and was as big as the fawn of a red deer. He lived in that forest at the head of a troop of no less than 80,000 monkeys whom he shielded from harm. Thus did he advise his subjects. "My friends, in this forest there are trees that are poisonous and lakes that are haunted by ogres. Mind to ask me first before you either eat any fruit which you have not eaten before, or drink of any water where you have not drunk before." "Certainly," said they readily. One day they came to a spot they had never visited before. As they were searching for water to drink after their day's wanderings, they came on this lake. But they did not drink. On the contrary, they sat down watching for the coming of the bodhisattva. When he came up, he said, "Well, my friends, why don't you drink? We waited for you to come." "Quite right, my friends," said the bodhisattva. Then he made a circuit of the lake, and scrutinized the footprints round, with the result that he found that all the footsteps led down into the water and none came up again. "Without doubt," thought he to himself, "this is the haunt of an ogre." So he said to his followers, "You are quite right, my friends, in not drinking of this water. For the lake is haunted by an ogre." When the water ogre realized that they were not entering his domain, he assumed the shape of a horrible monster with a blue belly, a white face, and bright red hands and feet. In this shape he came out from the water, and said, "Why are you seated here? Go down into the lake and drink." But the bodhisattva said to him, "Are not you the ogre of this water?" "Yes, I am," was the answer. "Do you take as your prey all those who go down into this water?" "Yes, I do. From small birds upwards, I never let anything go which comes down into my water. I will eat the lot of you too. But we shall not let you eat us. Just drink the water." "Yes, we will drink the water, and yet not fall into your power." "How do you propose to drink the water, then?" "Ah, you think we shall have to go down into the water to drink. Whereas we shall not enter the water at all, but the whole 80,000 of us will take a cane each and drink after that from your lake as easily as we could through the hollow stalk of a lotus. And so you will not be able to eat us." And he repeated the latter half of the following stanza. The first half being added by the master when, as Buddha, he recalled the incident. "I found the footprints all lead down, none back. With canes we'll drink. You shall not take my life." So saying, the bodhisattva had a cane brought to him. Then, calling to mind the 10 perfections displayed by him, he recited them in earnest assertion, and blew down the cane. Straightway the cane became hollow throughout, without a single knot being left in all its length. In this fashion he had another and another brought and blew down them. Opening parenthesis. But if this was so, he could never have finished. And accordingly the previously mentioned sentence must not be understood in this literal sense. Closing parenthesis. Next the bodhisattva made the tour of the lake, and commanded, saying, "Let all canes growing here become hollow throughout. Now, Thanks to the great virtues of the exceptional goodness of bodhisattvas, their commands are always fulfilled. And from then on every single cane that grew round that lake became hollow throughout all era. There are 4 miracles which endure through the whole era. What are the 4? Well, they are, first, the sign of the hair in the moon, which will last through the whole era. Secondly, the spot where the fire was put out as told in the Jataka, which shall remain untouched by fire throughout the era. Thirdly, on the site of Gatakara's house no rain shall ever fall while this era lasts. And lastly, the canes that grow round this lake shall be hollow throughout during the whole of the era. Such are the 4 era miracles, as they are called. Closing parenthesis. After giving this command, the bodhisattva seated himself with a cane in his hands. All the other 80,000 monkeys too seated themselves round the lake, each with a cane in his hands. And at the same moment when the bodhisattva sucked the water up through his cane, they all drank too in the same manner, as they sat on the bank. This was the way they drank, and not one of them could the water ogre get. So he went off in a rage to his own habitation. The bodhisattva, too, with his following went back into the forest. When the master had ended his lesson and had repeated what he had said as to the hollowness of the canes being the result of a former ordinance of his own, he explained the relation, and identified the birth by saying, Devadatta was the water ogre of those days. My disciples were the 80,000 monkeys. And I was the monkey king, so fertile in resource. Jataka number 21. Kuruṅga Jataka. The antelope knows well. This story was told by the master while at the bamboo grove about Devadatta. For once when the brethren were gathered together in the hall of truth, they sat talking with disapproval of Devadatta, saying, Sirs, with a view to destroy the Buddha, Devadatta hired bowmen, hurled down a rock, and let loose the elephant Dana Palaka. In every way he goes about to kill the Lord of Wisdom. Entering and seating himself on the seat prepared for him, the master asked, saying, Sirs, what is the theme you are discussing here in gathering? Sir, was the reply, we were discussing the wickedness of Devadatta, saying that he was always going about to kill you. Said the master, it is not only in these present days, brethren, that Devadatta goes about seeking to kill me. He went about with the like intent in past days also, but was unable to kill me. And so saying, he told this story of the past. Once upon a time when Brahmadatta was reigning in Benares, the bodhisattva came to life as an antelope, and used to live on fruits in his visits in the forest. At one time he was surviving on the fruit of a sepani tree. And there was a village hunter, whose method was to build a platform in trees at the foot of which he found the track of deer, and to watch overhead for their coming to eat the fruits of the trees. When the deer came, he brought him down with a javelin, and sold the flesh for a living. This hunter one day noticed the tracks of the bodhisattva at the foot of the tree, and made himself a platform up in the branches. Having breakfasted early, he went with his javelin into the forest and seated himself on his platform. The bodhisattva, too, came abroad early to eat the fruit of that tree. But he was not in too great a hurry to approach it. For, thought he to himself, sometimes these platform-building hunters build themselves platforms in the branches. Can it be that this shall have happened here? And he halted some way off to reconnoiter. Finding that the bodhisattva did not approach, the hunter, still seated high up on his platform, threw fruit down in front of the antelope. Said the latter to himself, here's the fruit coming to meet me. I wonder if there is a hunter up there. So he looked, and looked, till he caught sight of the hunter in the tree. But, feigning not to have seen the man, he shouted, My worthy tree, until now you have been in the habit of letting your fruit fall straight to the ground like a pendant creeper. But today you have ceased to act like a tree. And therefore, as you have ceased to behave as becomes a tree, I too must change, and look for food beneath another tree. And so saying, he repeated this stanza. The antelope knows well the fruit you drop. I like it not. Some other tree I'll seek. Then the hunter from his platform hurled his javelin at the bodhisattva, crying, Go away. I've missed you this time. Wheeling round, the bodhisattva halted and said, You may have missed me, my good man. But depend upon it, you have not missed the reward of your conduct, namely, the 8 large and the 16 lesser hells and all the 5 forms of bonds and torture. With these words the antelope bounded off on its way. And the hunter, too, climbed down and went his way. When the master had ended this discourse and had repeated what he had said about devadattas going about to kill him in past days also, he showed the relation and identif. Jataka number 22. Kukkura Jataka. The dogs that in the royal palace grow. This story was told by the master while at Jetavana monastery, about acting for the good of family, as will be told in the 12th book in the Bardasala Jataka. It was to drive home that lesson that he told this story of the past. Once upon a time when brahmadatta was reigning in Benares, the result of a past act of the bodhisattva was that he came to life as a dog, and lived in a great cemetery at the head of several hundred dogs. Now one day, the king set out for his garden in his chariot of state drawn by milk-white horses, and after amusing himself all the day in the grounds came back to the city after sunset. The carriage harness they left in the courtyard, still hitched onto the chariot. In the night it rained and the harness got wet. Moreover, the king's dogs came down from the upper chambers and gnawed the leather work and straps. Next day they told the king, saying, Sire, dogs have got in through the mouth of the sewer and have gnawed the leather work and straps of your majesty's carriage. Enraged at the dogs, the king said, Kill every dog you see. Then began a great slaughter of dogs. And the creatures, finding that they were being killed whenever they were seen, went to the cemetery to the bodhisattva. What is the meaning, asked he, of your assembling in such numbers? They said, The king is so enraged at the report that the leather work and straps of his carriage have been gnawed by dogs within the royal premises, that he has ordered all dogs to be killed. Dogs are being destroyed wholesale, and great peril has arisen. Thought the bodhisattva to himself, No dogs from without can get into a place so closely watched. It must be the thoroughbred dogs inside the palace who have done it. At present nothing happens to the real culprits, while the guiltless are being put to death. What if I were to discover the culprits to the king and so save the lives of my friends and family? He comforted his family by saying, Have no fear. I will save you. Only wait here till I see the king. Then, guided by the thoughts of love, and calling to mind the 10 perfections, he made his way alone and unattended into the city, commanding thus, Let no hand be lifted to throw stick or stone at me. Accordingly, when he made his appearance, not a man grew angry at the sight of him. The king meantime, after ordering the dog's destruction, had taken his seat in the hall of justice. And straight to him ran the bodhisattva, leaping under the king's throne. The king's servants tried to get him out. But his majesty stopped them. Taking heart a little, the bodhisattva came on from under the throne, and bowing to the king, said, Is it you who are having the dogs destroyed? Yes, it is I. What is their offense, king of men? They have been gnawing the straps and the leather covering my carriage. Do you know the dogs who actually did the mischief? No, I do not. But, your majesty, if you do not know for certain the real culprits, it is not right to order the destruction of every dog that is seen. It was because dogs had gnawed the leather of my carriage that I ordered them all to be killed. Do your people kill all dogs without exception? Or are there some dogs who are spared? Some are spared, the thoroughbred dogs of my own palace. Sire, just now you were saying that you had ordered the universal slaughter of all dogs wherever found, because dogs had gnawed the leather of your carriage. Whereas, now, you say that the thoroughbred dogs of your own palace escape death. Therefore you are following the four evil courses of partiality, dislike, ignorance and fear. Such courses are wrong, and not king-like. For kings in trying cases should be as unbiased as the beam of a balance. But in this instance, since the royal dogs go scot-free, while poor dogs are killed, this is not the impartial doom of all dogs alike, but only the slaughter of poor dogs. And moreover, the great being, lifting up his sweet voice, said, Sire, it is not justice that you are performing, and he taught the truth to the king in this stanza. The dogs that in the royal palace grow, the well-bred dogs, so strong and fair of form, not these, but only we, are doomed to die. Here's no impartial sentence meted out to all alike. It is slaughter of the poor. After listening to the bodhisattva's words, the king said, Do you in your wisdom know who it actually was that gnawed the leather of my carriage? Yes, sire. Who was it? The thoroughbred dogs that live in your own palace. How can it be shown that it was they who gnawed the leather? I will prove it to you. Do so, sage. Then send for your dogs, and have a little buttermilk and kusa grass brought in. The king did so. Then said the great being, Let this grass be mashed up in the buttermilk, and make the dogs drink it. The king did so, with the result that each several dog, as he drank, vomited. And they all brought up bits of leather. Why, it is like a judgment of a perfect Buddha himself, cried the king overjoyed, and he did his act of homage to the bodhisattva by offering him the royal umbrella. But the bodhisattva taught the truth in the 10 stanzas on righteousness in the Tisakuna Jataka, beginning with the words, Walk righteously, great king of princely race. Then having established the king in the 5 commandments, and having encouraged his majesty to be devoted, the bodhisattva handed back to the king the white umbrella of kingship. At the close of the great being's words, the king commanded that the lives of all creatures should be safe from harm. He ordered that all dogs from the bodhisattva downwards, should have a constant supply of food such as he himself ate. And, abiding by the teachings of the bodhisattva, he spent his life long in charity and other good deeds, so that when he died he was reborn in the Deva heaven. The dog's teaching endured for 10,000 years. The bodhisattva also lived to a ripe old age, and then passed away to fare according to his deeds. When the master had ended this lesson, and had said, Not only now, brethren, does the Buddha do what profits his kind. In former times also he did the like. He explained the relation, and identified the birth by saying, Ananda was the king of those days, the Buddha's followers were the others, and I myself was the dog. Jataka number 23. Bhojājānīya Jataka. Though fallen now. This story was told by the master while at Jetavana monastery about a brother who gave up persisting in path. For it was then that the master addressed that brother and said, Brethren, in past days the wise and good persisted in path even amid hostile surroundings, and, even when they were wounded, still did not give in. And, so saying, he told this story of the past. Once upon a time when brahmadatta was reigning in Benares, the bodhisattva came to life as a thoroughbred sindh horse and was made the king's war horse, surrounded by all pomp and state. He was fed on exquisite 3-year-old rice, which was always served up to him in a golden dish worth 100,000 pieces of money. And the ground of his stall was perfumed with the 4 odours. Round his stall were hung crimson curtains, while high up was a canopy studded with stars of gold. On the walls were festooned wreaths and garlands of fragrant flowers. And a lamp fed with scented oil was always burning there. Now all the kings round yearned to possess the kingdom of Benares. Once 7 kings surrounded Benares, and sent a missive to the king, saying, Either yield up your kingdom to us or give battle. Assembling his ministers, the king of Benares laid the matter before them, and asked them what he was to do. Said they, "You should not go out to do battle in person, sire, in the first instance. Send such and such a knight out first to fight them. And later on, if he fails, we will decide what to do." Then the king sent for that knight and said to him, "Can you fight the 7 kings, my dear knight?" Said he, "Give me but your noble war horse, and then I could fight not 7 kings only, but all the kings in India." "My dear knight, take my war horse or any other horse you please, and do battle." "Very good, my sovereign lord," said the knight. And with a bow he passed down from the upper chambers of the palace. Then he had the royal war horse led out and sheathed in armor, arming himself to cap a pie, and securing on his sword. Mounted on his noble horse he passed out of the city gate, and with a lightning charge broke down the first camp, taking 1 king alive and bringing him back a prisoner to the soldiers' custody. Returning to the field, he broke down the 2nd and the 3rd camps, and so on until he captured alive 5 kings. The 6th camp he had just broken down, and had captured the 6th king, when his war horse received a wound, which streamed with blood and caused the noble animal sharp pain. Perceiving that the horse was wounded, the knight made it lie down at the king's gate, loosened its armor, and set about arming another horse. As the bodhisattva lay at full length on his side, he opened his eyes, and gathered what the knight was doing. "My rider," thought he to himself, "is arming another horse. That other horse will never be able to break down the 7th camp and capture the 7th king. He will lose all that I have accomplished. This exceptional knight will be killed. And the king, too, will fall into the hands of the enemy. I alone, and no other horse, can break down that 7th camp and capture the 7th king." So, as he lay there, he called to the knight, and said, "Sir knight, there is no horse but I who can break down the 7th camp and capture the 7th king. I will not throw away what I have already done. Only have me set upon my feet and clad again in my armor." And so saying, he repeated this stanza. Though fallen now, and pierced with darts, I lie. Yet still no one can match the warhorse. So harness none but me, O charioteer. The knight had the bodhisattva set upon his feet, bound up his wound, and armed him again in proof. Mounted on the warhorse, he broke down the 7th camp, and brought back alive the 7th king, whom he handed over to the custody of the soldiers. They led the bodhisattva up to the king's gate, and the king came out to look upon him. Then said the great being to the king, "Great king, kill not these 7 kings. Bind them by an oath, and let them go. Let the knight enjoy all the honor due to us both, for it is not right that a warrior who has presented you with 7 captive kings should be brought low. And as for yourself, exercise charity, keep the commandments, and rule your kingdom in righteousness and justice." When the bodhisattva had thus encouraged the king, they took off his armor. But when they were taking it off piecemeal, he passed away. The king had the body burned with all respect, and bestowed great honor on the knight, and sent the 7 kings to their homes after taking from each an oath never to war against him any more. And he ruled his kingdom in righteousness and justice, passing away when his life closed to fare thereafter according to his deeds. Then the master said, "Thus, brethren, in past days the wise and good persisted in path even amid hostile surroundings, and, even when wounded so grievously, still did not give in. Whereas you who have devoted yourself to so exceptional a teaching, how comes it that you give up persisting in path?" After which, he preached the 4 truths, at the close of which the faint-hearted brother won arhatship. His lesson ended, the master explained the relation, and identified the birth by saying, "Ananda was the king of those days, Sariputra the knight, and I myself the thoroughbred sindh horse."